Well, it is week 3 of the LCS with coverage brought to you by Alienware. It's day 2 here, and Finn just beat EG on what feels like a rising tide for CLG. Is that what's happening here? People are losing their minds because you guys are winning games, which, like, on one hand, probably feels bad. On the other hand, probably feels great.
Yeah, it's really funny, like when people get so upset because they're losing to us. It's like it kind of rubs it in a bit more. But in the end, I think it's just we need every win. We need every win we can get, and I think we kind of figured out a bit of an identity that we can build around now. Last week we struggled really hard in team fights, especially that game against TSM was very crucial. How we messed up our execution. So the week following that, this week then, we kind of just focused really heavily on how we fought, how we were like synchronizing the fights, and how we were communicating in fights to make sure we are very aware of how we want to execute. And I think this weekend we're kind of seeing the results of that, and it feels good that our work is paying off and we're actually making progress because it felt like the last weeks before that we were just going in circles and we didn't really figure out anything that actually worked for us, and we were kind of just reaching for, I don't know, nothing.
Well, you mentioned, by the way, you think people take it harder or they get upset whenever they lose to you guys. Do you think that's true that these teams are like getting frustrated losing to CLG?
I mean, I think teams are getting frustrated no matter who they lose to, but maybe a bit extra because it's us. Losing is always, for me, the major motivation to keep going forward because there's nothing feels worse than losing. And yeah, I don't think it matters what team you're losing against. If you lose, you feel like shit.
Well, okay, so I remember that we had a caller on Hotline League right before the start of summer who was like, I think CLG is going to turn around. They're going to do great summer, et cetera, et cetera. And then after that first weekend, we were like, all right, well, maybe not. CLG's really a struggle situation. And I did that interview with Broxa where he was really sad as well, the split. So what is actually causing you guys, like, what changed? What's turning it all around for you?
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a mindset shift. We've had a lot of rough weeks and we've had a lot of rough games. I think that we kind of feel like we should have won. I feel like in a lot of our games we're in a winning position, but then we kind of just we drop the ball or we kind of drop focus. We kind of make mistakes that which are kind of obvious, when you look back at it. Like a game that comes to mind is this game against C9 where we were talking about, okay, guys, the only way they win is if they TP flank us now and they get a good fight that way. And then what happens? They TP flank us, they get a good fight, and we lose the game. When you look back at a game like that, you're like, man, that is so embarrassing. We knew what they were going to do, and they did it anyway. And I think, yeah, as I said, we are focusing really heavily now on our awareness in fights and our just general fight cohesion. And I think that's kind of, it feels good because then we have something to go forward from, like a good base. Because I think before we just didn't really know where to start, kind of know what was actually making us win games because we just kept losing most of our games.
How I've actually, I don't know if I've ever asked a pro player this, but it comes to mind just now. Okay, so maybe you could walk me through like your mental process personally, because you guys lose a lot, and like as you just said, it's in these situations where like you know that they're gonna try to TP flank you, and then they do it. You said you were focusing a lot on just your awareness and team fights, etc. So how do you tackle that? Is it like a team fight breaks out, and you in your mind say to yourself like, okay, remember all those times we lost because we weren't aware, they did something, they flanked us or whatever. Start being aware in this moment, or is it something where it becomes more instinctual for you because you've just focused on it more in scrims? Like, what does that kind of mental process look like?
Well, I think one big change that we kind of made now, I mean, at least for us, because I think before every fight breaks out, there's always like a dance. Like people who watch the games know this. There's like a Baron dance, a Dragon dance, like a setup dance. There's always a dance, and that's a lot of downtime where you can actually discuss and talk about how you actually want to execute the fights. So, for example, this game against EG, we were like, okay, we lost this fight at Dragon. How do we lose it? Okay, Rel got a good flank on us. Fuck, we can't really go deep if Rel is just gonna flank our back then. So what was our adaptation? Okay, we made sure to always engage on the Rel to not give her a chance to engage on us. And this adaptation we made was very crucial in how we fought this game. because every fight going on, we would like engage with Kled ult, Rakan ult, Vi ult, whoever like saw the angle would just go on the rel, knock her out of the fight, and then we would regroup. We would take a victory and then regroup. We didn't just keep diving after we killed their support, because then we might lose the fight. But we killed one target, what we wanted, and then we regrouped, and then we kind of looked over the fight again and see, okay, how do we go from here? Before, I felt like we would just bash our heads in and just, we got one kill, okay, nice, we want to get this kill more kills, always, you know? And we just kept wanting more. But I think now we're a bit more patient in how we get something, and then we instantly don't go for something else. We kind of get what we have, and then we see, okay, can we get more? No, okay, let's just get this then. And we kind of reassess the situation a bit better now.
All right, that's helpful to kind of help me understand like how you approach it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. I no doubt you guys are getting better. However, I am a little concerned that LCS looks like everyone maybe is in a like the total league skill seems to have gone down. Tell me if I'm wrong on this, but it kind of feels like it because a lot of these games I watch, like I know Immortals won their game today, but like the last two games, like they were winning, and then they lose. And I've talked to and interviewed a lot of people who say like we should have won that game or we should have lost that game, or it feels like feels like a lot of these games are being decided by throws, like pretty late game throws, right? So I don't know if that's just the meta and where we're at right now, or if it is just like we're making a lot of mistakes in the LCS and all the teams are doing it. Like, what is your take on that?
I think people who stay like who feel like this is an issue in LCS don't really watch much of other regions, especially LPL. Like I've been watching a lot of LPL recently, especially now they're focusing on team fights. I try to look at a lot of LPL VODs because they're like the kings of team fighting, I think.
Right.
And a lot of these games, they're like they have these leads, but a lead doesn't really matter if the other team just out team fights you and performs better in a team fight. Like there's so many tools to outfight your opponent that these leads that should matter. Like, okay, you have 2k up in your AD carry in this fight, but it doesn't matter if you get a really good flank off and AD carry countered auto attack, right? Some stuff like this, like really simple version of it, but it's a lot more complex in the game because there's 5 players in every team. So these leads that like even like a soul or whatever doesn't really matter if one team just finds a way better angle than another team. And people like League is really volatile. There's a lot of angles that constantly show itself. So I feel like the team that is very decisive and knows how to execute their fights often can outfight like an on paper bad situation for them because they are just better at fighting.
Yeah. Okay, well, walk me through this. I don't mean to challenge you on that, but it's more just out of ignorance. This is where my mind goes. Shouldn't the better team just always have had the lead in the first place? Like, it's great that a great team can like overcome a terrible situation, but wouldn't a better team have never put themselves in that situation? And I get that there are some comps where it's like, okay, we're gonna lose early game and then we're going to come back late game, or like, oh, this is more like a late game team fighting comp or whatever. So sometimes it is just about the draft. But I just for clarification, like, wouldn't it make sense that a lot of these teams that have to win in the last moments of the game by like pulling off some insane team fight or like making the comeback at Baron or something like that, isn't there an argument to be made that they shouldn't be in these situations in the first place if they were skilled enough?
Sure, I think that's a really fair argument, and it's for sure true to some degree. A good team should not be in a bad position, like that just makes sense, right? But I think what separates a good team from a great team is their ability to adapt and be flexible in game. I think that's what kind of signified why G2 was so dominant in 2019 and also 2020. I think those 5 players that played on G2, they're all very flexible in game, and they kind of all saw what they needed to do even if they were behind. It was like really classic in 2019 G2. They would like be losing early game because they're making silly individual mistakes or they're like getting caught off with stuff they don't expect. But then they would always find a way to win these games because they just know what they need to do in the game, and a 2 or 3k goal lead won't really change that. But yeah, for sure, a good team should not be in a bad position. That just makes sense. And I can't really out argue that. But mistakes happen.
Yeah.
Like everyone makes mistakes. It's just natural. And as I said, I think League is really volatile right now, and a mistake can really snowball. And people get caught off guard, and you just have to capitalize on it.
Well, hey, we're out of time, unfortunately, but is there anything you want to say to any of the fans out there?
I mean, there's a lot of CLG fans still out there, which is crazy to me because uh, I'm surprised they didn't leave because we were so bad. So I'm just really grateful. Okay,
Listen, if they
that came
didn't
out
leave
with-
last year or the year before that, they're not going to leave this year.
Yeah,
These
yeah.
folks
I mean,
really want to stick
I'm
around.
just so mind blown that people like watching us play because I feel so bad disappointing them with our performances, and I really want to show that we can be way better than what we show. And I think this weekend has been a good start for that, and I just want to keep building on this and going even further because I feel like I want to pay back for their loyalty. If that's an English word, I don't even know.
That's good. Thank you so much for the interview. Really appreciate it. And for everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things LCS right here on my YouTube channel. It's summertime, and the living's easy. Especially, did you get the? That's a lyric from a song, and it's from a while ago. And I know that I'm old now. I wasn't when I started this career, but it's been a decade this year. And so I went from being a young anyway, just trust me, it's a lyric. What I was getting at is like the living's easy, and so is playing games on an amazing Alienware computer. You can find them by clicking the link in the video description below, which brings you to my like dedicated Travis page. If you haven't been there, at least just click it so you can see what it looks like because it's got my face on it, and maybe you're curious. And then maybe if you do want to get something like a new notebook or desktop or monitor or accessories, you can do so through that link as well. So thanks so much to Alienware for supporting this, and thank you for supporting my sponsors.